Imagine a huge Fallout 1 and 2 fan realizing there is a new CRPG heavily inspired by its set in post-apocalyptic Australia, you nostalgic bastards. So I got into it quickly and unfortunately I don't have good news. Thankfully it is a very short game that I've spent around 10 hours to beat, but for a price of around $30 to $40 or euros it is a bit too short, even with the replayability factor. Problems are many and enough of a replay deterrent. General story is good, if a bit too familiar, with your little community suffering from the sudden attack by vastly superior forces after which the survivors run away for their lives. Ones that survived try to make their way to a big city that only allows people in under certain conditions, basically if they have something to offer. I liked the intro part a lot, as the events fit the world with introductions to different communities and how they all make their own way in this devastated world. Over the course of the game, the player visits many different communities with interesting socioeconomic structures. If you've played Fallout 2, it is gonna feel way too similar. Essentially, cities of Meriden and Calgary are Vault 8 or Vault City split into two. Meriden utilizes a similar method to Vault City, where people are utilized through working schedules, something like slaves, where they are almost impossible to be free due to interest accumulation and similar bureaucratic bollocks designated by the governor. Then Calgary has citizenship tests, but instead of advanced medical capabilities like in Fallout 2, they have magic. What this game has succeeded in is making me want to replay Fallout 1 and 2. It is definitely interesting seeing how communities are set up in post-apocalyptic Australia. I was genuinely interested to see what kind of diverse wannabe utopias game would come up with. In my opinion, the drive to explore Australia and to reach out to communities is probably the best part of the game. Unfortunately, the writing doesn't hold up to making the most out of the post-apocalyptic opportunity where all sorts of ridiculous mysteries can be created. Instead, stories are kinda bland, with side quests being subpar. While main quests can be interesting, for example participating in governor elections in Meriden, side quests are usually boring, unless they tie directly to the main quest in the same city. Bring zinc cream for an artist, find 10 flowers, get ingredients for the most complicated tea ever, which I straight up refused to do. In a post-apocalyptic world, I'm not going around collecting sugar, milk and flowers for grandma's tea. Screw you and your tea, grandma. Instead of mutants and aliens that I would love to hunt and battle in such a world, they are making me collect tea ingredients. By the way, no mutants and aliens in the game, even though they have referenced mutants a couple times. So disappointing. A lot of these quests require visiting vendors across all the towns, which becomes annoying quickly, especially considering that in bigger cities there are 5 to 10 vendors selling different things, so going through their shops becomes tedious fast. Characters of the post-apocalyptic Australia are quite interesting though, main ones at least. Water-raising hippie, shrewd governor, serial killer with amnesia, and the main bad guy, Kev. Yup, Kev. Not World Destroyer, Ass Taker, Master of Puppets, Bionic Pinocchio, or any mysterious name from another language, but Kev. Honestly, I'm laughing again writing this. Maybe that was the idea, to name him Kev so he would laugh. If it is, good job. Kev the man. Fuck it, I like it. Some characters have interesting stories and main quest connections, but most don't. Game also reeks of feminism and gay propaganda with a disproportionate amount of lesbians being badass across the board, with stories how one takes 2 guys out of the bar and kicks both of their asses. Makes female characters quite predictable because there are no major differences between them due to similar characteristics. Only one that seemed more human that I recall was Reaper's wife, who is old and I guess hasn't lost the empathy side of her. I understand that in post-apocalyptic world almost everyone is tough, but then leave some room for humanization, like you do with men. That is why they are more believable. Mick, for example, is a well-written character because of his weaknesses. Also, so many women being gay doesn't bode well for the population of Australia in the post-apocalyptic world. While questing and talking to people, the morality system comes into play. It is divided into 4 major groups: humanist, nihilist, Machiavellian and utilitarian. Each comes with its own philosophy and unlocked perks by aligning the character towards the particular moral style. Player chooses 2 styles and basically follows them. Not a bad system at all, but underused. Consequences of morality-based decisions don't seem to be significant, except in a few situations. World and story progresses often as if morality choices weren't even there. Problem is also that the main character is more of a bystander to all of this, aside from a few decisions. In the end, most of the morality system and decision making seems insignificant, as does the main character, and that is not good. Not being able to customize the appearance of your character is also not a good approach. Now we get to combat that is unfortunately subpar. Creating meaningful, engaging and exciting turn-based combat is not easy. Even though I love turn-based combat in general, I get why many don't. To make turn-based appealing, it needs to be brought to an extremely polished levels in terms of presentation to make kills feel significant, have strategic layers that make sense and require thinking about the best approach, interesting, unique and diverse abilities, armors and weapons, class diversity. Broken Roads has none of that, unfortunately. You have cover. That is the extent of the strategic approach. Kills are weak, there is almost no significant blood and gore, which is fucking stupid in a post-apocalyptic world based on communities murdering each other. Fallout 1 and 2 has better death animations. There are 8 or so spells from what I remember and half are useful. Maybe others are too eventually, but never had to use it because the game outside of the first hour is piss easy. Ran through every encounter with only withstand spell being cast. Killed Kev, the final boss, in one turn. Broken Roads should be looked at as to how not to create turn-based RPG combat. No rotate option for characters, even though there are backstabs. No different firing modes for weapons. Line of sight is almost irrelevant except when shooting from cover. Cover works a bit weird because it is quite unclear from what side the game enables cover protection so that enemies have less chance to hit. Can't throw spears. UI in combat missing tons of info, like combat log that would make things clearer. Ranged enemies don't get debuffs for long range shots even while having a bastard with a cleaver in their face, and so on. Problem is also pacing. With so much filler dialogue, bland writing and boring quests, the only thing that offsets that is the subpar combat, but combat only makes the overall game worse because it doesn't offer any satisfaction and challenge and happens only occasionally. However, at least it changes the dynamic a bit if nothing else. Pacing is quite bad, unfortunately. Character progression might seem more complex at first, but it is quite straightforward. Ranged focus characters have a couple attributes and skills working for them. Same for melee focus characters. There isn't much build diversity though. Companions level automatically as well, which doesn't help. Then spells get added into one of the 3 major character defining categories. It adds another helpful layer to the character progression, but unfortunately due to how combat is designed and lack of challenge, the player is never pushed to utilize the depth of the system. Also, the world doesn't really have skill checks outside of few occasions and only the main character can interact with them, which feels like a completely underdeveloped area of the game. In terms of visual presentation, the game looks great in my opinion. Love the art style, but no gore really hurts the game. Specific little thing I've noticed is a very nice font that is easy on the eyes and easy to read. Just a small thing, but I like font choice a lot. Audio work is unfortunately subpar. Had to turn off the narrator's voice because of how annoying it was. That might be subjective, so I won't count it against the game. What is not subjective are terrible sound effects that hurt the combat. Music, although nice and fitting, gets a bit repetitive too. Conclusion is that Broken Roads is a Fallout game with almost no charm, no balls and no appeal except for the art style. It's bland all across. CRPG with subpar combat that cannot offset writing problems and pacing issues can't end up being good. Few interesting things are communities and towns, art style and font. Morality system would be good if used in a better way for more major decisions. General story that ain't bad suffers from bland writing, filler dialogue and lack of influence of the main character. As is, it's a subpar game that I'm gonna give 4 out of 10 with the potential of 5 if they balance things better and at least make it more challenging. Even though pricing a game is really difficult and quite subjective, I think I can objectively say Broken Roads is not worth the price. That's all, and thanks for watching.